Take two. Ever so sorry for the technical delays today, guys. I'm hoping if someone is there and can see me, I would really love it if you let me know that you are here. About 15 minutes off the normal scheduled time. My apologies. If you are just joining me, we are restarting World Lymphedema Day. And I'm hoping that you can see me this time. You can't see me, can you? I think we are still. I don't know what's going on here, guys. I'm very sorry. Okay, Rachel is saying I can see you. Not Rachel, Rochelle. Rochelle can see me. I can see and hear you, Debbie says. Okay, well, thank you for that, guys. A little bit of a bumpy start. It's Mondays. Maybe that's why, because I'm doing these on Mondays. My apologies for the technical delays. For those of you that are joining me, I am going to assume you can see me, and I'm going to start my rambling. Susie, I've got a fourth confirm. Bingo! So sorry for the delay, guys. My lack of technical skills. There's a few moving parts to get this going, and I failed horribly today. So for those of you that are joining me, thank you very much. Hello, Irene from New Zealand. Again, Debbie, Rochelle, and Susie, thank you for letting me know that we are, in fact, live. And for those of you that have been patiently waiting, I apologize for my lack of technical skills. Today, around the world, and yesterday in parts of the world, March 6th, was World Lymphedema Day. Hello, JC. I'm going to go through a few facts and stats, and then I want to get into just a really simple routine that those of you are dealing with lymphedema or suspect that you may be dealing with can do on your vibration plate. I mentioned in the live that I would be talking about my favorite self-care tools, which of course is always the vibration plate. Is the vibration plate better than other tools? There is no such thing as better. One of the questions I get very commonly in my group that supports lymphedema is, what is the best vibration plate for lymphedema? And it's not, as I've said in other disease or condition related sessions, there's never any one machine that is best for every condition. It's more about what you're doing on it, how it aligns with your goals, and where you personally are starting. So if you're dealing with lymphedema, sometimes you're not dealing with the same body. There are two types of lymphedema, and I'm going to cover this, and I'm probably going to trip on my tongue a few days today, because due to similar terminology, my fat disorders group talks a lot about lipedema, Derkim's disease, loose connective tissue disorder. Lymphedema is the more commonly known condition. It is a very common co-condition in my group. And so there's some terminology I might trip on just because of what I'm used to speaking to. And as I said, typically the first week of March every year is when you start seeing a whole bunch of information. It is World Lymphedema Month, March 6th this year being World Lymphedema Day. And as I said, there are two types. There is primary lymphedema, which is rare, considered to be 1 in 100,000 individuals in the US that are dealing with primary lymphedema. As I stated earlier, if you do have lymphedema, or this is a co-condition, or you're dealing with other conditions, today is all about awareness. So I want you to hashtag World Lymphedema Day and tell me what your diagnosis is, or even if you don't have a diagnosis, what you suspect. Secondary lymphedema is more common. This is associated with 1 in 1,000 Americans being diagnosed. And what causes lymphedema? According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, it's primarily caused by cancer or by cancer treatment. Sometimes if you are dealing with a cancerous tumor and it grows enough in size, it might actually affect and press in on your lymphatic system, some of the vessels, create blockages, areas of pooling and swelling, which are some of the trademarks for lymphedema. Surgery can remove cancer, but it can also remove lymph nodes. It can cause scar tissue, nerve damage. There's other things that are just associated with surgery in general. And these vessels that carry our lymph fluid can be compromised or damaged. And this can cause, as I said, fluid to build up in the surrounding tissues of where that's being affected. Radiation on its own can also sometimes cause damage to the lymph vessels. Poor treatments, going to the wrong massage therapist or self-massaging without necessarily understanding, this isn't a deep tissue massage. There's different ways that you stimulate the lymphatic system than if you're going for a muscular massage. So, and this can also result in too much fluid just pooling in tissues, and that's what you'll see represented as swelling. Swelling on the skin, sometimes it can get leathery and it can feel tight, especially if it's been swollen and stretched for a really, really long time. It can be painful. It can be tingly. Any type of variance in your normal sensation can be an indication that there's some lymph fluid obviously blocked in that area, especially if you've got the swelling. It can also feel like the limb is heavy. So if you've got an arm or a leg, sometimes it feels like you're carrying an extra milk jug with that extra fluid in there. It feels heavier. And as I said, the skin can look almost thick or leathery, especially if you've had swelling in a certain area for a long period of time. If you have recently been diagnosed with cancer or you are going through cancer treatment, radiation in particular, please talk to your doctor if you do notice that you are having intermittent swelling, painful areas, lack of sensation. All of these things can be symptoms that there's more going on and you may have lymphedema. So as I said, today is all about awareness. I'm going to get to some little tips now for those of you that are working with a vibration plate. For those of you that have lymphedema and are wondering, why would I use one over other things? There's never one tool that is perfect to treat every symptom or every disease or every condition out there. But what a vibration plate will offer over many other therapies you may be working with is it can be a therapeutic tool. So it's a really great way to get lymph moving. Lymphatic movement, especially in areas where you have compromised lymph, is really, really an easy thing that you can do for your own self-care. Maybe you're just moving your arms if you've got areas up here that you're dealing with, or maybe it's just moving your legs. Sometimes when you're dealing with lymphedema, or if you're especially dealing with post-cancer, you're not dealing with the same body. You're dealing with fatigue. You're dealing with pain sometimes. You're dealing with lack of sensation. Sometimes balance and stability are issues. So the machine can help you treat and manage symptoms, but it's also a very kind exercise tool. I've never in my history of working with these machines had situations where doctors have advised my clients to do less activity or none at all. But sometimes you need to modify or change what you were doing prior to your condition because you're not dealing with the same body. Maybe heading back to the gym and doing a whole bunch of weights and running on that treadmill aren't the best thing when you're dealing with a new condition. The big thing with lymphedema is you want to get moving. Moving is going to get lymph fluid moving throughout your body. Your lymph system does not have a pump. Unlike your circulation, your heart pumps your blood flow, and exercising is a good way to increase heart rate, increase and expedite circulation. But when we move, lymph moves. So, do what you can and progress from there. And one of the best ways to use your vibration plate is throughout the day, not only to move lymph. Everything's always dual or triple purpose to me. So you're going to get lymph movement in a very easy way, but it's going to help you manage your symptoms. If you're dealing with pain, swelling, lack of energy, mental clarity, oxidative stress can contribute to a lot of things in the body. So just sitting there and feeling bad about your situation is actually going to make it worse. So get moving. And a lot of ways that you can use your vibration plate, depending on where you are physically starting at, you can use it for other things like weight-bearing activity to build the bones, to get stronger. Typically we do have other goals in mind. It's not a matter of just moving lymph, but you can, like I say, use it throughout the day to benefit from that as well. So we're going to go through a very quick 3-4 move routine, depending on where you're starting at. You can always use your machine seated. You can use it as a combination of seated and standing. For those of you that have range of motion and are gifted with that, you can also sit directly on the plate and you can massage body parts directly. Today, I want to talk more about just generally getting things moving. And just because your machine is set for 10 to 15 minutes does not mean that you need to use it for that long. If you are just using a vibration plate for the first time, or you are dealing with a new lymphedema or cancer diagnosis, you probably shouldn't be using it for 15 minutes. You're probably getting more action than you're ready for. One of the big things you want to make sure is you're not going too long and actually depleting the energy that you have, especially if you're dealing with fatigue. So I want you, as I do in all of my sessions, I want you working in oscillating movement. Oscillating is kind of like pumping your body and moving it, very much like walking. It's going to give you the greatest natural feeling, the least amount of head buzz. If you're dealing with sensitivity, lots of tightness in the skin, you may want to modify the intensity. Modifying the intensity is called amplitude, which simply means you're standing wider with your feet or closer together. I want you closer for what we're working on today. I know my head's going to be cut off here now that I'm lined up, so I'm just going to bring this up a little bit higher. There. And one of the first things we're going to work on, for those of you that have joined me in any of my sessions in the last week or two, I do a lot of seated. I don't want to be looking at this. Hang on. So we're going to work on a very light weight-bearing activity today. There's been lots of questions in the group about bone density. How do I improve it? As I said a little bit earlier, I'm all about dual purpose. So today, for lymphedema awareness, whether you are aware or not, I'm going to repeat it a million times today. When you move, lymph moves. So if you're dealing with instability, you're not working with great range of motion, you've got poor balance, I want you to just start by getting used to how the plate feels. If you're uncomfortable standing, you can remain seated like I started. But today, I want to encourage you to do a little bit more. So we're going to start by placing one foot on the plate. We're not terribly wide. We're in about the mid position. My foot is just off the center by about 2 to 3 inches. And my foot is moving. You can feel this sort of up to about the knee and into the lower thigh, but I'm not really feeling anything up past the body. And typically, if you've gone through treatment or you've been inactive for a long time, you're going to have a strong side and a weak side. So what we're doing here is simply warming up the lower legs before we stand on the darn thing and get a little bit more action going into this. So this is a great way if you do have lots of swelling in the lower extremities. If you spend a lot of time sitting and you're dealing with lymphedema, it's really, really common to have puffy feet, ankles, calves, knees throughout the course of the day because everything's going downhill. A couple weeks ago in heart health session, I talked about ensuring how strong calves are really good at returning blood flow. They're the smallest group of muscles compared to the thighs in our legs. But the same goes for your lymphatic flow. Your body's got to pump this all the way uphill. And if you're sitting all day, you might have pinched nerves, you might have pinched lymphatic. We need to get moving more. So a variation to just putting the foot on the plate is just doing a slight calf raise, coming up on the toe. Typically, if you're not active and you're not dealing with good balance, I don't want you doing this standing with 2 feet on the machine just yet, but I do want to get some more movement, a little bit of range of motion going in the ankles. You can do this standing or seated in the stool as I started earlier. And this is a good way to also minimize injury. If you're going to start exercising on your machine and doing things like a little bit of squats, The reason the range of motion in our squats is usually lacking is due to lack of flexibility in the ankles. It has nothing to do so much with those bad knees and the hips. That's part of it, but primarily it's due to lack of range of motion in the ankles. So now that we've done a little bit of a good warm-up, what I want to do is a little bit of a step routine. I want to get a little bit more total body movement. So we're just going to step up to the plate, and if you're able, step back down. Very slow. You know, one of the best ways to have fun and feel the pain a little bit less is to get some tunes going. You know, if you've got music, something with a bit of a slower rhythm. I got to be careful with copyright blasted music in some of these sessions, but music is a little bit of a motivator. It gives you a bit of a pace. And what I want you to do with this one is basically about 30 seconds to a minute, let's say 15 to 20 step ups, just to sort of get things moving without physically standing on the plate completely at this point. The next one we're going to go to, and this is really good also, I always forget to mention, for those of you that are dealing with bad knees, the stairs are usually your biggest enemy. This is a really good way to just get that activity in a functional manner into the knees. And I think you'll find, these type of movements on the machine, even though we're not doing maybe a big old workout, is a great way to get the lymph moving and make those stairs easier long run. You'll notice that. So the next thing I want to do is I do want to stand on the plate. For those of you that have never done this before on your machine and maybe are just doing a seated exercise, you may want to just continue one leg at a time, but I do want to encourage those of you that have been sitting and are able to bear your weight to start progressing. The more that you can bear your body weight, not only are you going to get more total body lymph movement, but you're going to start building stronger bones. A lot of times when you've digressed, if you've gone through treatments, one of the biggest things that takes a hit besides your lymphatic system is the bone density. So anything that you can do to start building up weight-bearing activities and just bearing your own mass in a standing position, the more it's going to dual purpose and keep those bones and those muscles strong as well. So what I want to do to get a little bit more total body lymph action going, and I think I'm going to turn the machine a bit so you can see this one. I want to incorporate a little bit of upper body movement. So we're going to look a little bit like a ballerina today. And what I'm going to do, I want your feet no more than hip width apart. I'm working at about a mid-speed range. If you find that this is too intense, too much action, you can modify by bringing your feet slightly closer. So what we're going to do with this one, I want your feet no more than hip width apart, but I want you to just angle them slightly so the toes are going slightly outward. When you're doing a bit of an angled position with your feet, you want to make sure that the knees follow, okay? So what we're going to do is, and I'm not a ballerina, I'm not a ballet dancer, but I want to do some big circles with our arms. And what we're going to do is we're going to extend them up over our head on the lower part of the squat. So we're just going to go very low and look like this. So arms out, back down. Arms out, back down. Okay? If you want a little bit more resistance, you could add a band. You could add some weights to your upper body. For those of you that are dealing with frozen shoulders, maybe don't have the best range of motion, you might want to go a little further, right? Try reaching up. Okay. This is just funner than just standing there. And just by moving, adding some upper body movement to your arms, you're going to get more lymphatic movement. Many of my ladies that have gone through breast cancer reconstruction, it's really common to have issues in the nodes under the arms, the arms themselves. So while you're doing your standing positions, if balance allows, have your arms get into the action. And sometimes when you're doing something like this versus like physically, holding still, you might find the stability is less of an issue, okay? And, little things like many of you that are dealing with lymphatic issues do self-massage, lymphatic massage, which is a very gentle but consistent fashion in which you stroke along the lymph vessels. You can do any of those things while you're standing on the machine, if you're doing those type of self-massage now. If you do have areas, let's say that, you've got one leg that's got a little bit more swelling than the other, and you're feeling comfortable on the plate. The plate is just a stimulus. Maybe you want to manually work some of that fluid up. And again, we're doing this light to touch. This isn't like as hard as you can, right? But maybe you want to give one side a little bit of attention. Same with the arm. Maybe you've got an arm that's got a little bit more fluid in one side than the other. As I said, there's all kinds of different self-massage. And by doing those massages, whether you're seated in a stool or standing on the plate, the machine, think of the machine as an accelerative tool. It's going to ramp up the effects of whatever else you're doing. You're going to get more flow, not only on the lymphatic, but the circulation. It's going to boost your energy. What I did was probably about 5 minutes worth of movement there, but you could do a condensed version of this for 2 to 3 minutes throughout the day when your body tells you it needs attention. So maybe you're feeling lethargic, or maybe you've been sitting at your computer working for some time and you notice the sensation in your feet is starting to get tingly. That's usually a good indication that there's been an increase in swelling and you need to get moving. So whether you have a plate that you have access to throughout the course of the day, maybe you're working from home and you can take advantage of something like that. If you are leaving for the day and you only have access to your plate, in the morning or the evening, a little shake 3 to 4 minutes before you head out the door. The same when you get home, just to manage, what the day has presented on you. If you are exercising on your plate, you don't really need to do anything extra. Your lymph is always moving when you're on the plate. So if you're dealing with lymphedema now and you're in a good routine with what you're doing on the machine, sometimes just mixing up the settings from week to week. So if you're just using the same exercises, you can mix up what speed you're using on the machine, or the position of your feet, or your upper body if you're doing upper body positions, just to mix things up a little bit, and so that your body doesn't get too used to any one setting that you're doing. A lot of people ask me, what is the best program? There is no best program for any one condition. It's very much a personal preference and choice based on what feels comfortable to you and what you can tolerate. Sometimes with lymphedema, you have good days and you have bad days. So you need to also change what you're physically doing on the machine to adapt and modify to your ever-changing needs, if you will. So sometimes, there's days where you just don't really feel like exercising due to pain, due to you just don't really want to, whatever the reason may be. But even just, using it therapeutically for a couple minutes to get the lymph moving, get things flowing is not only going to help you manage your symptoms, but if you're dealing with other things like restless leg or backaches, things that are disrupting your sleep is when your body recovers and puts into work all the things that we've done throughout the course of the day. So if your sleep is being disrupted, it's kind of a bit of a double whammy. So, restless leg, if you do have a lot of swelling before you hit the hay, a couple of minutes on the machine just to get things moving and flowing. What I will caution is if you're using a vibration plate for the first time, especially the first time before bed, sometimes it feels like things are still moving. So you're laying in bed and it feels like you can almost feel the lymphatic vessels moving and flowing, and it might be more prominent in areas of compromise. So if you've got one area that's been damaged, or you've got some lymph nodes missing, a common area that's always swelling, the sensation and the sensitivity is sometimes decreased or even heightened. And it's not uncommon to feel a little bit itchier in certain areas when you first start out on the machine. And itchiness, especially if you've got an area that's got blocked lymphatic movement, is going to be a lot itchier, or more like that pins and needles feeling. That is short-lived. It will dissipate within a couple of weeks of regular use. Of course, like I say in all my sessions, consistent, regular use is the best way to see improvement using your vibration plate, especially for lymphedema, because again, lymph moves when you move. So, even if it's 10 times a day for a couple of minutes, I think you're going to start feeling a lot better just assisting your system in getting things flowing. And as it improves, you're probably going to notice short and long term, the swelling is going to dissipate, or it's not as severe when it does happen. And pay attention to those cues that your body is giving you, whether it's a change in sensation, a visual increase in swelling or redness at the skin surface. Those are key times to say, hey, maybe a minute or two on the machine is a good thing to do. One more tool I want to talk about, also vibration, and I always bring up in many sessions because it's such a versatile tool as well. If you are unable to be at home, or you're using a vibration plate and maybe you've just got an area that's really, really tough and stubborn, a massage gun is an equally great tool. Does it give you the exercise benefits, obviously, that a vibration plate will? But it's really ideal if you're dealing with troublesome areas, tough spots. You've got lots of scar tissue. You've got compromised nodes in one area. Maybe you're dealing with lymphomas. There's many of you dealing with little fat nodules that aren't necessarily cancerous, but they can sure be painful. And if you've got them in certain areas, they screw up your day if you've got a few on your bum or your elbows. So a massage gun is a really good way to target and spot treat swelling. But what I will caution is keep in mind, like I mentioned earlier, with a muscular massage, if you're dealing with an area of swelling due to lymphatic issues, you might need to be a little bit more gentle in your approach. You're not dealing with the same body. So what I recommend on a massage gun is very similar to what I recommend on a vibration plate. I want you going with a mid to higher speed, okay? And depending on what body part you're looking at massaging, but let's say that you've got some excess swelling in the arm, and that's a really common thing. Let the gun do the work. So by bringing it up to a mid or higher speed, you can literally skim the surface. Okay, don't press in all hard. And for those of you that are dealing with lymphedema, lipedema, some of these other related conditions, you tend to be prone to bruising. So, and if it's painful, the last thing you want to do is you don't have to suck it up and press it in there. If it hurts, don't do it. What I'm doing here, if you can see clearly, it looks like I'm actually not even touching the skin. I'm holding the gun just off the surface of my skin, and as it moves, it's just skimming the surface of my skin. And this is a really good way, if you've been dealing with swelling for a really, really long time and lots of scar tissue is present, it might take you a while to break things up and start getting them soft and squishier. But you will find success using this tool. Just like the plate, consistent, regular use is key. This is going to be good for areas where maybe you'd like to target but lack the range of motion to get down and maybe massage the hips or the legs on the machine. It's also a good complement with the machine. So you can be using the machine and you can be targeting with the gun. The more you can combine tools that you have, the less time you're going to spend on the self-care piece, and the quicker you're going to start feeling better. Another really good tool many of you are using, I would recommend, is compressions, infrared saunas, red light, anything that can stimulate the lymphatic movement is going to be something you want to consider to manage your lymphedema. It really gets down to a personal choice, what you are willing to do. I ask you to be realistic, just because I think a vibration machine is the best way to go, and you're going to get the most benefit overall. If it's something that doesn't appeal to you and you're physically not going to get off your butt and use it, think of something else, but think of something. There's no reason to suffer with the symptoms that you're dealing with. Between, like I say, compression massage, perhaps infrared saunas or some of the red light tools, a massage gun. There's many passive therapies that do not require you taking another pill or having another surgery that can help you manage your symptoms right now. If you're getting ready for surgery and you're going to be in a recovery situation soon, all the more reason to get comfortable with some of these tools now, especially if you're looking at using them post-surgery. A lot of times, even with vibration plates, people would assume, I'm getting ready for a knee replacement or I'm getting surgery due to lymphedema, that I shouldn't use my vibration machine. That's absolutely false. You might need to modify how you're using it because you're unable to do some of the exercises. But as I said, with modifications, really there's very few situations where you can't use your plate to at least get the benefit of lymphatic movement going, manage some of that pain, and give you guys some energy. So you are only limited, as I always say, by your imagination and your range of motion, and I'm here to translate the rest. So I hope that gave you some information to take away today. Most people are familiar with the term lymphedema, and as I said, today is all about awareness. I'd like to sort of circle around now and get to the questions and the sharing portion of our little live. Anyone who is dealing with a diagnosis, it could be a co-condition that you're dealing with. I'd love to hear from you. If you are using Life Pro tools to manage some of those symptoms, I'd love to hear if you have any tips that you'd like to share. As I said, the big tip for the day with lymphedema is the shorter part of that word, which is lymph, and to get it moving. When you move, lymph moves. So consistency is the key. And, if you do find that you're able to start managing some of the swelling and the pain, many things become more possible. I'd love to see, for those of you that have maybe taken a hiatus from your activities, to return to them, even if it's in a modified fashion. It doesn't mean that it is a death sentence because you have lymphedema. There's many, many ways that you can manage this condition. Just be patient and kind with yourself and explore and be realistic with what type of tools appeal to you, and start using what you have at home already if they've been collecting dust. Sometimes it's about just getting Debbie to give you a bit of a butt kick to get you motivated and back on your tools. So I'm going to revisit who's here with me today. Hello again, Rochelle, Debbie, Irene, Susie, JC, hello. Hello, Sharon, and I see Facebook user. Gotcha now, Debbie. For those of you that are joining this on the recorded side or have joined me late, I apologize. Yes, Big Bad Debbie had all kinds of technical issues, and I got started about 15 minutes late today. So my apologies for that. If you are out doing some awareness events for lymphedema today, please feel free to share on social media. The World Lymphedema folks are asking to create awareness. We want to see a hashtag World Lymphedema Day. If you are here with me and you have lymphedema, you feel free to post that in the live. If you're watching this on the recording later on, please share what you have, how you're managing it. Awareness is key. Sometimes with some of these conditions, there's a lot of stigmas out there. With some of these conditions, you're not fat, you're not overweight, you actually have a medical condition. And unfortunately, that's not always well understood. So be kind to your body, do what you can, but do something. And like I say, when you move, lymph moves. I don't know if we have any questions today. Some of the names that I'm seeing here are very versed with my sessions and are managing their symptoms with a variety of tools. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Again, I want to apologize for the late start. I will be joining you at this earlier time of 3 p.m. for the rest of the month of March. Just going to try a new time and see if it gives some folks an earlier opportunity to join. If you do have any questions or if you ever have topic ideas, please let the folks at Life Pro or myself know, and we will plan that into future sessions. If you have any questions related to today, perhaps you're dealing with lymphedema, weren't aware of some of the tools that you are able to use, please tag me at Debbie with a Y, and I will get back to you with an answer on that. Is pedal edema the same thing? Pedal edema, it's one of the big things that drives many of us in the community that are dealing with lymphedema and lipedema crazy is, yes, there's a portion of the word called edema that sometimes has the same meaning and similar association, but edema is a part of that condition. It's not exactly the same thing. I will also point out overseas that lipedema and lymphedema are also very prominent, but lipedema, the one condition, has a slightly different spelling. So however, for today, we are talking primarily about lymphedema. But if you are dealing with other, I'm just looking up this term here. I wanted to post a link, edema. Pedal edema just because I had to look it up here, sorry, is a condition where the ankles or the feet are swollen due to the accumulation of interstitial fluid that fills in between the cells. Little bit of a different condition, and the downside. Thank you for bringing that up. Of some of these is not everybody has a diagnosis. So swelling in the feet and the ankles, and it could very well be something else that you are dealing with, but maybe it's in addition to. So I'm sure there's a lot of folks dealing with that as a co-condition out there. All the more reason, if you do have swelling, it's consistent, and you're dealing with a diagnosis of some sort, or seeking a diagnosis, you may want to talk with your doctor. Thank you, Facebook user, for bringing that. She was asking if pedal edema is the same thing. It is not, but you may think it is the same thing because of where it's presenting and how. Symptoms can be universal, so swelling in the feet and the ankles can be common, whether you have a condition or not. When you get into some of the extremities, there's a number of conditions that can be associated with. So all the more reason to maybe just have a discussion with your care provider. If you are dealing, Facebook user, with pedal edema, I know there tends to be a sensitivity, often pain, especially if you've been dealing with it for a long time. Or the opposite, sometimes symptoms even like neuropathy and those types of things can present because of the way the nerves have been affected with the swelling and perhaps some scar tissue. So a vibration machine or a gun or any of the tools I've talked about are a great way to get circulation and lymphatic flow moving, especially in that area. And you can do that if it's sensitive, just by starting seated in a stool, as I began the session. If you have a machine and you've been fearful to use it because of that condition, you can modify intensity, bring those feet even dead center to get started. Really, really depends on your sensitivity, and you can decide what your level of tolerance is, especially if that varies from day to day. Facebook Suzer says, got you now. Hello. I see you. Again, thank you for the delays and your patience with them. I thank you for joining me today. I was a little flustered getting started out because I was 15 minutes late. So sorry about that, guys. Again, I will be the same time next week, 1 p.m. my time, Mountain Standard, noon Pacific, and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if that's where you're joining me from. Thank you very much for joining me. Bring awareness to World Lymphedema Day today, however you can. Share your stories, share your successes, and share your tips. Perhaps someone out there can benefit from simple things that you just take for granted as part of your self-care. Some people may never have even had a clue about. Thank you for discussing about pedal edema. There's so many conditions out there, and I was looking into rare diseases last week. I did a session, and there's sub-conditions within conditions within conditions. So this is an opportunity for you to bring awareness to it. Whether you're joining me right now on the live or you're looking at this after, share and be aware, and tell your stories for World Lymphedema Day, which is today, March 6th. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. Hi, Josie. Have a great rest of your week. Don't work too hard, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care.